You're listening to the Screaming Pods Network.
That's the thing. Like, the term UFO, I think it's kind of nuts how that, I get it. I get why that's synonymous with like aliens and extraterrestrials, but a UFO is just that, an unidentified flying object. A plane could be a UFO, until you identify the damn thing.
Well, every UFO I've ever seen is a plane.
Or spotlights.
Or spotlights.
Yeah, seriously.
And you know who has some really interesting stories about seeing unidentified flying objects?
Pilots.
Yes.
Nailed it.
But also those who serve our government, those who are in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, those who are isolated in areas that almost none of the public, almost nobody
Area
from the
51,
Area 51,
Groom Lake, the government knows, and they're spreading disinformation.
Right.
If they didn't know anything, they wouldn't be spreading disinformation.
Well, tonight at the fire, we actually have a guest storyteller on with us, Jack, who wants to share his extraterrestrial experience he had while serving in the Army.
After I graduated from high school, I joined the Army to serve my country. Vietnam was in its infancy, but there was a lot going on. I wound up going to Korea, and I served over there for 16 months, came back from Korea, and got stationed out in Arizona. We're about 4.5 hours away from Area 51. In 1964, May, there was 100,000 troops on the Mojave Desert. And it was called Operation Desert Strike. This was, if we had to go to war in countries with desert, how would we operate? I was in communications with very sophisticated equipment. While out in the Mojave Desert, a strange thing happened one evening. We were all sitting around. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden, a big light flashes right down over our camp. We were sitting at a table, drinking beer, and we looked up and we couldn't make out what it was. It was not a helicopter. It was not a spy plane because it had no sound. It stayed stationary there for at least 10 minutes. I don't know if you're familiar with searchlights, spotlights that they used to use back in the 50s when a store opened. It appeared to be as bright as one of those, kind of like an aircraft landing light, but about 30 times bigger. We just sat there speechless while it was there. I told 2 of my men to go into the communications trailer and make a call and find out what's going on. They went into the trailer. All the equipment was shut down. We could not get a signal out. As quick as that light appeared, it disappeared with no sound, no visual at all as to what it was. From that day forward, I became a UFO believer. This was nothing the military had. This was nothing we encountered. But we played war games out there. And we had tanks, artillery, and whether they were trying to find out what was going on, we have no idea.
After we talked with Jack, he told us that he really didn't get any feedback from his superiors or anything. They didn't tell him, you didn't see anything, nothing like that. So I just kind of wonder if maybe they were sort of surprised by the encounter too.
Right. Like, how much do your superiors know? Like he didn't really know anything was going on. And
it's one thing to know they exist, but it's not like their schedule.
Exactly. Exactly. And he seemed like he was in the dark and all of his peers were in the dark as well. I mean, or maybe they were men in blacked and their memories were wiped.
Maybe it was a disinformation campaign. Maybe it was just some really big helicopter carrying some giant
spotlight.
Silent helicopter, I guess. Yeah, carrying some big ass light.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the 60s, like he said. I don't know.
And I think I heard somewhere in the 60s, they actually had the technology to use drones. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. The military, it's crazy the technology the military has, how soon they have it before the rest of us can have it.
So what else are they holding back? Where are they getting this information from to advance technology beyond our wildest dreams?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's unreasonable to think human intelligence can't do something like that. Because if you think about the rate we're, I guess, growing, it's exponential.
Right.
Like, we figured out computers, and look, you can talk to your phone now, and it'll do shit for you,
Which is really awesome and very scary at the same time.
Yeah, but that just happened in what? How many years? It was less than 100 years from when we had computers to now.
Right.
It's going to, once we figure out self-driving cars, who knows what we'll be automating.
Right. And somebody's holding on to this information. Somebody knows that we have access to this technology right now before anybody in the public knows about it. And I wonder, what length will those people take to keep their secrets?
We found one Redditor's account of a really, really strange, out of the ordinary night that he had when he was at home alone and a few men in black stopped by. Before I begin, I'd like to say that I'm a complete skeptic, and I always question anything and everything supernatural. I think extraordinary claims should always require extraordinary evidence. Even today, I'll never be able to empirically prove what I experienced. This all happened on June 16th, 2007. I was 17 years old, but I still remember it vividly. I was living in my parents' home at the time. That night, it was pretty stormy, and the wind was gusting slightly more than usual. Rain was coming down violently, typical crackles of thunder and flashes of lightning. I was playing WoW at the time and was enjoying the idea that I had a legitimate excuse to stay in and do nothing. I was about to finish one of the longest chain quests in the game, and boom! All of a sudden, internet goes out. I try for about 30 minutes to get it back on, and you guessed it, nothing. My parents at the time were out at a work-related event. I remember laying on the bed just staring at the ceiling. I turned my head and looked at my old retro alarm clock. It read 6:18 p.m. I jumped out of bed, eyes wide open, startled as hell. I looked out a window facing the front door and I looked outside and saw 3 tall men dressed in the typical FBI agent-looking black suits. One was carrying what looked like a folder, a file, or something. Another had what I've now identified as a Geiger counter. And the third was just beating on my door with his fist. I opened the door. The man that had been knocking greeted me in a really monotone voice. He pulled out a badge and told me that he and his colleagues needed to check the water source from the faucets in the house. I asked him a bunch of questions, and it turns out that they were, in fact, with the FBI, and someone had allegedly tried to poison the city water supply. I called my parents to let them know what was going on. They obviously wanted to help with the investigation and allowed them to come inside. The guys in the suits didn't even check the water in my house. They had some other group of government agents show up and check it. I tried to ask if there was a motive or if it was a terrorist attack. Whatever it was, all they said was that they couldn't talk about it in any detail. Then, out of fucking nowhere, all the lights in the house go out. It's pitch black. The guys in suits tell everyone to stay calm. They think it's just a power outage. The guys taking water samples turn on their flashlights. As one of them was shining a light over the tallest of the suited men, I saw a reflection from his face. It was like there was metal under his skin. The guy with the flashlight quickly directed it somewhere else. A few seconds later, the guy with the flashlight goes, "Sir, it has begun." The suited man turns the Geiger counter on. The thing starts going haywire. Not even 3 seconds later, it felt as if I was being pulled into a million different directions. I couldn't see anything at first, but just felt this excruciating pain. I thought I was in the process of being disintegrated alive. Out of nowhere, I see nothing but white. I literally thought I was in what religious people call heaven. A man appears to me, and he smiles. He swings his arm in an inviting way. It was like we were entering a giant white ballroom. I try to walk, but there's nothing. Then the white room kind of gets sucked into itself, and I see my life flash before my eyes. I see everything. Disneyland at 5 years old, my first kiss, watching 9/11 happen on TV with my mom and dad. Everything. I see Earth suspended in space. I'm watching Earth from above, and then I start to fall. I'm falling, and my heart's racing. I feel numb in disbelief. I see the ground getting closer and closer, and I know this is it. I know I'm about to die. Before I hit the ground, I hear the monotone voice of the suited man again.
Do not, no matter what.
I woke up in a cold sweat, panicking. I was laying in bed. I freaked the fuck out and ran downstairs to find my parents cooking dinner. I ran right back upstairs and saw that the time was 6:22 p.m. I was relieved to find out it was only a dream, but it gets creepy. I go back downstairs and ask my parents when they'd gotten home. They told me they had been home. It was their day off. I asked how their event went, and they said that it was last week. I asked them what time I fell asleep, and they told me they didn't know I was sleeping. I went to my computer and found my WoW account logged in, and it was where I left off before the internet went out. I checked my computer for the date, and it was the 23rd. I have literally no memory of a full week. I went back upstairs and noticed that it looked like someone had gone through my closet. I searched around, and that's when I saw it. The exact same Geiger counter that the alleged FBI agent was holding was just sitting there. I've never told anyone about this until now. I still have the Geiger counter, and I frankly don't know what to do with it. I have pictures to prove that I really have it. I've since spent the last decade trying to put the pieces together. I just live day by day as an ordinary person, hoping that they never come back.
What has begun?
Yeah.
Was he in a wormhole? Was there like a portal to another dimension that opened up that they built their house on? Like, what has begun? That is so scary.
Yeah, in that instant, he immediately, I don't know, died or something. That's kind of odd.
Right. I couldn't imagine feeling like I was being ripped apart and looking down from this space of nothing at the earth.
Maybe it was a wormhole. Maybe he transitioned between realities.
Like doppelgangers.
Well, no, like parallel universes.
Yeah, I never think that something like that could happen. I mean, when I think of having some type of experience like that, I'm thinking somebody's going to literally beam me up to their spaceship. I don't think something's just going to appear out of nowhere and all of a sudden, poof, gone.
Or it could be an extra dimensional being. That some of the theories around extraterrestrials and aliens have to do with this idea of them being in a dimension that we cannot, sense or experience.
Right, because otherwise wouldn't we have crossed paths by now?
That's the thought. Yeah. Maybe the lights we see in the sky are just them somehow intersecting with our dimensions. Yeah. I don't know. It's incomprehensible to us to think about, more than 4 dimensions. I say 4 because, we live in 3 dimensions, You have width, height, and depth, like a cube. But we also experience a 4th dimension. Do you know what that is?
Space. No.
Time.
Oh.
Space-time.
Space-time.
Albert Einstein, everyone. That dude posted pictures of the Geiger counter in his closet. It does look old. Like, it's an old as hell Geiger counter like they may have used, I don't know, in the 60s, 70s. I don't know if they're still lugging those things around. Maybe he's full of shit. I don't know. But still, absolutely terrifying to think about. It's one of those things that you're like, yeah, that only happens in movies. That couldn't happen in real life. But until they come a-knocking.
A lot of these stories seem to be so insane, but the memories are so vivid of those who go through the experiences themselves. They often wonder, could this have really possibly even happened? Is that feasible? There's no way it was just all in my head. Yeah. But there's no way it really happened.
We have another story brought to you by the fine users over at Reddit. It's about a extremely vivid dream they had about being abducted by aliens.
My grandparents have an old wood cabin-like house in a small village, about 110 years old. It's 100 miles outside the town where we have a permanent residence. And when I was younger, we were always heading up there for every summer holiday because it's just so calm and nice. It's just overall an easy place to rest and prepare for another year of school. This event happened to me when I was a small kid, maybe 6 or 7. We went to the cabin once again for summer vacation. One night I had a weird dream where I was being carried on some kind of hospital stretcher. I couldn't see very clearly. My vision was blurry. However, I could see I was being carried by 4 very tall, grayish-like creatures, 2 on each side of the stretcher. One of them bowed his head so close to me. I think it was to see if I was sleeping. Well, 5 or 6 of them surrounded me. I tried to look around and I noticed that we were somewhere in the middle of the forest. And then I realized they were carrying me to their ship. The ship was round and it was silver-colored and it was covered in lights. I felt so calm and peaceful the entire time. I didn't feel scared at all. And when we were close to the entrance, I fainted. And then I woke up in my bed. It was the night as usual. My parents and my brother were sleeping in the same room with me. And there was a small bedside lamp standing on the floor, throwing a calm, dim light around the room. No one was awake. I would easily consider this just a weird dream, but it's pretty similar to every UFO abduction story I've ever heard. But there is something more. A few days after that happened, my parents noticed a weird, scar-like line on the back of my head. They were very surprised seeing this, as they said that they've never noticed it before and they can't even think of a situation where I'd bang my head hard enough to bust my head open and leave a scar like that. For sure they would have remembered. It's not that big, around 4 centimeters in length, but it doesn't look like a regular scar. You see, there's no swelling around the line, and it's just kind of this hairless mark on my head. I still remember every detail of that very, very vivid dream. The ship, these creatures all surrounding me, and the forest, the trees. It would be crazy to think that I didn't experience all of this firsthand. But it would be terrifying to think that this may have really happened.
So I've had dreams where it feels so real and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, it was a dream. I get it. But typically you can tell whether or not something super unrealistic is happening in the dream, or you wake up during the course of events taking place in the dream, you figure out it's a dream. But this account, it seems like it was an event that occurred while they were awake.
And the fact that all of a sudden they have this scar on the back of their head, like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I feel like, I've done that in my apartment. It's like, has that picture always been on that wall? But of course it's been there since we moved in. And I feel like something like that doesn't happen with a child.
No, not a child, and especially not like a scar on your body that, I mean, an injury, especially a head injury, I mean, unless nobody was there to take you to the hospital, you would remember having that.
Maybe that's why you're having dreams about being abducted.
You're really just going to the emergency room. You fell off a ladder.
Your parents are in denial.
They're, no, honey, we don't know how that happened. We're really great parents.
But seriously. This is kind of like the typical UFO abduction story. It kind of happens in that dream state while you're asleep. Sort of odd.
Kind of like when you're more likely to see ghosts or become more receptive to ghosts. Well,
yeah.
Totally different playing field. But
yeah, what did TC call it? Hypnagogic state.
Yeah, hypnagogic state.
Yeah. I wonder, if you could...
that has anything to do with accessing, like if there are other dimensions and that's where all of the extraterrestrial life is, maybe we can only access other dimensions in our hypnagogic state.
Maybe. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, at least like out of some, sample of abduction encounters, what proportion
who was sleeping
occur. Yeah. While you're sleeping.
So, dream or real experience?
This one's tough to say, so I'm going to say probably something occurred.
I think something happened too. I definitely think something happened. And if anybody out there has any similar stories that they'd like to share, we'd love to have you on the show as a guest storyteller. Tell us a little bit about the weird scars you wake up with, some weird nightmares you may have, nightmares that actually happen in your life.
Yeah, we have a few really, really fun interviews we're looking forward to.
And if you want to jump on that train now, shoot us a story. You can find our Submit a Story page on our website, atthefire.com.
Yep, you can always send us an email at admin@atthefire.com.
And if you want to stay up to date on all those spooky happenings at our podcast studio, make sure to follow us on Twitter @_the_fire.
Yeah, did you know that @ symbol is called an ampersat?
No, I didn't.
You know the and symbol?
Ampersand.
Interesting, right?
Ampersand. Well, now y'all know.
Yeah. Let's talk about the origin of the other special characters on the keyboard.
Or, if you enjoyed tonight's episode, make sure to tell your friends. Spread the good word. Word of mouth is the best thing you can do for a small podcast like us.
Yeah, we love you all. Thank you very much for listening.
And as always, I'm Jill.
And this has been...
We're peacing out. Hopefully we won't get abducted before the next episode, because it's going to be a really great one.
Sleep tight.
Don't let the aliens bite.
Big thank you to Jack for sharing his UFO story with us. Thank you to Redditors UberRob and XLewisXCypher for posting their first-hand accounts. The music and sounds this episode were made possible by Lee Rosevere, Black Ant, Ryan Little, Patrick Lieberkind, Incarnadine, Fogma, Anatech, and Xena Jam. You can find their music and sounds on freemusicarchive.org and freesound.org.
You're listening to the Screaming Pods Network.